Top 5 Events Leading Up to the Civil War, written by Daniel Dreisen, Alexis Caetano, and Michael Bitzian. 5. Nat Turner Rebellion. Nat Turner Rebellion was a rebellion that took place in Southern County. Nat was a slave who started the rebellion, hence the name. It started on August 21st, 1831, and was squashed in 2 days. Nat Turner had been joined about with 60 slaves who killed up to 65 white people. The state executed 55 slaves, including Nat Turner, who was captured on October 30th, 1831. Then later, 200 slaves were murdered because of white mob's anger that followed the revolt. Nat Turner's rebellion raised Southern fears of general slave uprising and had a profound effect on the attitude of Southerners towards slavery. 4. Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a network of secret routes and safe houses established in the United States. It took place during the mid-19th century and was used by African American slaves to escape into free states or Canada. A well-known conductor was Harriet Tubman, who made 19 trips and saved 300 people by allowing them to find their way to freedom. Due to the Underground Railroad and slaves disobeying slave state rules, the Civil War began. 3. Fugitive Slave Act. September 18, 1850. The Fugitive Slave Act was passed by Congress. It was a part of the compromise between the Southerners and the Northerners. The act granted the Southerners the right to hunt down runaway slaves in free slave state territories. Abolitionists called it the Bloodhound Law, named after the dogs that were used to track down runaway slaves. The Fugitive Slave Act was created tension between the North and South, which led to civil war. 2. The Election of Lincoln, 1860. On November 6, 1860, Lincoln had won the presidential election. Hannibal Hamlin was elected as vice president. The election had contributed to the start of the Civil War because Abraham Lincoln was an abolitionist. The South were for slavery, so of course they were against Lincoln. Lincoln's election had led to the Civil War because the South was for slavery and he was against. This led many to fear the way of life being destroyed. 1. Kansas-Nebraska Act. On May 30th, 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act was passed by the United States Congress. The act enabled people in Kansas and Nebraska to decide for if they want slavery or not in their territory, following the ideas of popular sovereignty. This act directly repealed the Missouri Compromise of 1820 and had Northerners outraged. This led to Bleeding Kansas. It turned into a period of violence that occurred in Kansas between pro-slavery and anti-slavery advocates. An example of this would be John Brown, a radical abolitionist, and his followers who had attempted to create a slave revolt but ultimately failed as a result of not telling the slaves he was coming for them and to be prepared. So when he attempted to raid Harper's Ferry Armory, he did not succeed in doing so because when he did not have enough men, and he was surrounded by General Lee, who later became one of the most major Southern generals in the Civil War.